One of the most confusing aspects of Christianity is their belief in the Trinity. The idea that God is one being but also three persons, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. But here is the strange part. It is not confusing to those who are not Christians. We can clearly see that this doctrine doesn't make any sense. But it is confusing to the Christians themselves because they are the ones struggling to explain it. Ask any Christian what the Trinity really means, and you will get vague, self-contradictory, and often heretical answers. And when some Christians realize this problem, they try to solve it by rejecting the Trinity completely. We will see even that escape doesn't solve the deeper confusion. Because the real problem is not in the explanations. The real problem is in the Bible itself. Let's start with some real-life examples from the comments on this very channel. One Christian trying to defend their doctrine of Trinity says, a person has body, soul, and spirit. So tell me, is he three persons or one person? He was trying to explain the Trinity as if God is like a human being with different internal components, soul, spirit, and body. But this is actually modalism, the heresy that God is just one person playing three different roles, officially condemned by every major Christian church. So I asked him, the doctrine of the Trinity includes three persons. Are you denying that? But instead of him replying, another Christian stepped in and said, Trinity is not three persons. This is even worse, because the entire doctrine of the Trinity is built on the idea of three persons. Let me be clear, this is not my interpretation. This is what every major Christian denomination teaches. Let me list out what churches officially teach about the Trinity. First, Catholic Church says, we do not confess three gods, but one God in three persons. Eastern Orthodox Church, one God in three persons, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Protestant confessions, Westminster Confession. There be three persons in the Godhead, the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Pentecostal churches, Assemblies of God, Church of God, IPHC. One God eternally existing in three persons, the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. So when a Christian says Trinity is not three persons, they are denying their own church's doctrine. This shows you how confused Christians are even about the most basic belief in their religion. Trinity confusion is universal. Even those who try to defend the Trinity often end up accidentally promoting heresies because it's impossible to explain clearly. Some say it's like body, soul, and spirit in one person. Others say it's like water, ice, and steam, three forms of one thing. But these are all condemned analogies officially rejected by theologians. Why? Because the doctrine insists that God is not one person with three parts or forms, but three distinct persons sharing one divine being. And here is the important part. Even those who affirm the Trinity don't agree among themselves about how the three persons function. Some believe that Jesus alone acts in all three roles, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, which again leads to modalism. Others think the three persons are just three modes of God's activity, like God triple acting in different ways, another version of the same confusion. Some even treat Jesus as the primary or central person in the Trinity, downplaying the Father or the Spirit, which contradicts the idea of three co-equal persons. So even among Trinitarians, there is no agreement on the nature and role of these three persons. They all say we believe in the Trinity, but they all mean different things when they say it. Church leaders and pastors disagree because the doctrine itself is vague and contradictory at the core. Even church fathers admitted this is a mystery that cannot be fully understood. So when regular Christians try to explain it, they only expose that they don't understand it. Because all of this confusion, some Christians now reject the Trinity altogether. They claim the Bible teaches only one God, the Father, and Jesus is either a man or a created being. But here is the problem. Even the Christians who reject the Trinity are divided. The biblical Unitarians, Christadelphians, say Jesus is just a man, the Holy Spirit is God's power. The Jehovah's Witnesses claim that Jesus is the first created being above angels but below God. And the Oneness Pentecostals, Jesus-only believers, say Jesus alone is God, Father, Son, and Spirit are just modes of Jesus. These groups contradict each other and all claim we are the ones following the Bible. So rejecting the Trinity did not solve the problem, it just created new versions of the same confusion. Let's be honest. All these contradictions come from the Bible itself. In the Old Testament, God is clearly one person, Yahweh. Isaiah chapter 45 verse 5 says, I am God and there is no other. In the New Testament, Jesus is sometimes called God. John chapter 1 verse 1 says, the Word was God, referring to Jesus. In John chapter 20 verse 28, Jesus is referred as my Lord and my God by one of his disciples. The Holy Spirit is called God in Acts chapter 5, but also appears as a non-personal force in other passages. So what is God according to the Bible? One person, three persons, one being with different forms? Different biblical authors wrote different ideas at different times. And later, theologians tried to glue all of it together into one doctrine called the Trinity. But that glue never really held. Let's summarize. Those who believe in the Trinity cannot agree on what it means, and those who reject it cannot agree on what to replace it with. And both sides are using the same Bible to prove completely opposite views. Why? Because the Bible is not clear about who or what God really is. And that's the real problem. So, dear Christian friends, if your own churches cannot agree, if your own doctrine cannot be explained, if your own followers deny what your creeds teach, then maybe it's time to ask, is this really divine truth? Or is this a man-made confusion trying to cover up a contradictory book?